I've read a few books on leadership, but this one takes the cake in terms of credibility. Napoleon Hill. All the stuff I'm going to teach you today comes from Napoleon Hill. He studied 500 plus of the wealthiest people on earth in person for over 25 years, and he wrote books on the topic. He had incredible access, and I want to share with you today 10 of the most important effective traits to become an even more successful leader. Before I get to that, I just want to commend you because most people, as soon as they clock out of work, they don't spend a second of their time looking to develop their leadership skills or become a better person. And, it's not a big mystery as to why they aren't more successful leaders. So, thank you for that. Anyhow, again, these come straight from Napoleon Hill, so let's just get started right away. Number 1, unwavering courage. So this sounds very simple, but let's hear what he has to say. People don't like following someone who is not confident, has low self-esteem, or isn't courageous. No intelligent follower will stay for a leader for a long time who is like this. And so basically it goes beyond courageousness. It means that you have to have a certain level of confidence and self-esteem and be sure enough in yourself. Now, some of you are already there, but are there moments where you waver or you do not show that courage or confidence? Maybe not, maybe so. If not, let's move on to number 2. Self-control. People who can't control or restrain themselves, they won't be able to do this for others as well. You have to be able to resist temptation and have that willpower. So willpower, as science has shown, is a muscle, which means it can tire on a daily basis if you overexert it, thus putting you in situations at the end of the day where you make less sound judgments. Keep that in mind. Also, it is a muscle that can be trained, so if you exercise it consistently, your willpower and restraint will grow. So how can you use this? At the end of the day, especially during exhausting, stressful days, your willpower is drained. You make stupid decisions. It's no wonder most affairs happen at the end of the day. And it's no wonder that when you're driving home exhausted after work and your willpower is drained from all these tough decisions and you drive past a fast food restaurant, that temptation will hurt you. And science has been done on this, and they have found that even the smallest temptation, simply resisting freshly baked cookies in front of you, can have a sizable, measurable result in the test scores you take after that resisting. Number 3, a keen sense of justice. Without being fair and just, you can't command and keep the respect of your followers. I think this is just really important. If a follower or your, coworker or your employees, they keep, maybe not every time, but once in a while, they just think, wow, that was really unfair what he did. Man, I don't know if I want to work here anymore. If that keeps happening, and maybe you have even been in the shoes of the person where you were affected because you saw something unfair that was done to you. I know I've been in those shoes. That can really, put a wedge between you guys, maybe even force that guy to quit. So sometimes you just don't know what's being done that's unfair. Many leaders are unaware of it. So what can you do to learn and just be more aware of the workplace? How can you just make sure that people are being fair? Maybe it's an anonymous submission box online where employees only can anonymously submit their complaints about unfairness. I know some leaders who actually open up their email to employees so that they get a direct line whenever they need it. 4, definitiveness of decision. So this one is huge. Napoleon always talks about it. He says that a lot of the most successful people, they're very quick to make decisions and very slow to change them. And to the point of a bit of stubbornness. He points to Henry Ford with his car and how everyone, including his co-workers, told him it was a failure. You should give up on the Model T. It's the worst car in the world. He stuck with it, and you know the rest of the story. Henry Ford won out. So again, it goes back to indecisiveness. When your followers, when they see that you're being indecisive, they might start thinking, maybe this guy doesn't know what he's doing as well. Maybe we can't trust him. Maybe he's not the best leader. Maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. And if you keep changing your mind or wavering, it's going to get worse and worse. Number 5, definitive plans. So a great leader must plan the work and then execute it thoroughly. He must have thorough plans laid out. A leader who makes decisions or guesses rather than a solid definitive plan will eventually fail. So make sure you have some level of plan that is definitive and can be executed thoroughly, laid out, not just random guesses and random stuff going on. 6, you do more than you are paid for. So this goes back to everything. As a leader, you should be willing to do any type of work that your followers are willing to do and more. And again, it also goes back on some of the other points. If your followers are like, oh, this guy is above us, he thinks he's so great, look at his ego, he's a hot shot, he'll sit in his office, but he would never get on the floor and wipe the toilet like us. That's going to put a wedge between you guys. So a leader, you have to show that not only are you willing to do what your followers do, and you show that, you also have to make sure that you do more than you are paid for. So goes back to the golden rule and doing a great job. Just do more than you are paid to do. 7, a pleasing personality. So as a leader, you want someone who people actually enjoy being around. If you're hostile, intimidating, you have a negative or just a personality that sucks, Napoleon Hill says that no one wants someone like this. No one wants someone who's careless or just unpleasant to be around. You must have a personality that, of course, it doesn't mean that you're best buddies with everyone and you go out for drinks every night, but you have to have a certain level of respect, and a pleasing personality really helps them want to be around you. So on top of that, he goes into things like sympathy and understanding. This goes back into a pleasant personality. Richard Branson, another billionaire, he says one of the most important traits you should have is you should listen more than you speak. That's why you have 2 ears and just one mouth. And he says being able to listen and understand and hear the frustrations and what they're trying to communicate, that will really help you understand and better evolve the organization. And it seems so simple, but no one does it. Not to the effectiveness of Richard. He actually spends all this time just not even talking and listening. And if you look at great communicators, great connectors, great networkers, great interviewers, they're really good at just listening and making sure that you are fully understood. They're not always in their head and trying to ask the next question, because at that point, as Stephen Covey says, or as anyone else who understands social skills, if you're just constantly in your head thinking of the next thing to say, over time they'll realize you don't even care what you're saying. You're not having a conversation, you're just saying what you want to say. And it goes beyond just leadership and social skills. I mean, relationships, your spouse, those things will really affect it if you don't understand it. 8, attention to detail. A successful leader pays exceptional attention to detail. While we're on the topic of billionaires, there's this billionaire, he has this TV show called The Billionaire Buyer. His name's Tillman Fertitta. And one of the things he always says in his interviews is that he is always very careful of the attention to detail. The 1% of 1% of things that people miss. So when he walks into a restaurant or a house, everything could be perfect. But it's that small little thing in the corner of the house, those cigarettes that have been thrown on the ground that everyone didn't notice. Or he walks into a stadium and sees 99,000 light bulbs that are working. He sees that one light bulb that's broken and he fixes that. And I think this is something that's really cool to have, not just if you're trying to be a business person, but I mean, we're talking some of the most amazing video games. I mean, it's literally like artwork. Video games are a product after all, so it is kind of business. But when you play these video games, like the attention to detail sometimes on just the background, like you could be in the middle of a very expansive universe, and the chalkboard in this random room is just intricately designed to look like, and it literally even has like math problems on there that are legit, and everything is just actually like an actual classroom. Those small details that's what separates the best chefs in the world from just the mediocre chefs, and everything really, like attention to detail. 9, willing to assume full responsibility. So I'm sure you've met someone who has to lead or manage people, and something bad happens and they're like, it wasn't my fault, that wasn't me, that was on you, you're to blame. According to Napoleon Hill, the best leaders are willing to assume full responsibility, because if your followers make a mistake, that's your mistake because you represent those followers. You were put in charge of leading those followers. So according to Napoleon, a bad leader is someone who takes the blame to someone else. A good leader is someone who actually takes that responsibility. If your followers make a mistake, then you have made a mistake as a leader. On top of that, he says that if you look through history, some of the world's best leaders compared to some of the worst, they embodied this. And the worst ones, they weren't leaders for long because they led by force, they didn't take all the responsibility, they blamed others, and they led without consent. If you lead without consent or by force or dictatorship, you'll breed resentment, or they just won't want to be followers for long. 10, cooperation. So he says that a great leader must apply the principle of cooperation and induce his followers to do the same, or her followers. So a great leader is someone who has that cooperation and actually gets everyone involved, everyone willing and able to help out and form a network where they're all trying to contribute and work together with each other. As a leader, you have a certain level of power, and with that obviously comes responsibility, but on top of that, despite that power, you need great cooperation to get it to work. So if you're not getting people to cooperate with you as efficiently as possible, why is that the case? Are you being unfair? Are you being tyrannical or leading by force in a small or minor way? How can you make that cooperation work more seamlessly? And by doing so, everything will be more efficient and you will get better results. In conclusion, I hope you like this video. If you're new to this channel, you can of course hit the subscribe button, but for my adamant fans, of course, the best stuff is on my email newsletter, which is delivered to you every week. You can get that by signing up for free on my website, which is linked right below this video in the description. And I will see you next week if you're subscribed to this channel or my newsletter. And I do videos every Thursday, so I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.